Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to share with you today Women on the Move, Technology and Animal Tracking. And all week long, we are celebrating Earth Day, and we're going to introduce you to some amazing Smithsonian women in science, technology, engineering, math, and sometimes the arts too, known as STEM or STEAM. So our guest scientists this week track animals all across different ecosystems, land, sea, and sky. Today's is all about birds. So we're gonna soar into how and why scientists track these avian or bird species. My name is Erica. I'm an educator at the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm gonna be your host for today. This is the second webinar out of a series of 3 leading up to Earth Day this Friday, so we hope you'll celebrate with us again. This series was made possible by the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative and is a collaborative event between the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute and the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center. So during this program, you're going to gain knowledge of wildlife and wild places, understand the role of a couple of Smithsonian women in STEM, and learn how tracking is saving birds. So once again, welcome to Women on the Move, Technology and Animal Tracking. I'm so thrilled to welcome Dr. Autumn-Lynn Harrison to the program. Hi, Autumn-Lynn, and welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for everyone on the line. I am Autumn-Lynn Harrison, a research ecologist at the Migratory Bird Center, which is part of Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, and I love my job.
That's awesome. Well, I love the introduction that you love your job as well. Thank you for sharing that. Can you break down research ecology for us a little bit? That might be a new career for some people.
Sure. It's really at its heart about solving the mysteries about animals. What types of food do they like to eat? Where do they go? Where do they nest? Where do they spend the winter? And then we use the information that we learn to help save birds.
All right. So can you tell us what species you're researching right now?
Sure. I'm really a marine ecologist. So I specialize on birds that fly and use the ocean and also birds that like to go to the beach. So seabird and shorebird species. These include black-bellied plover, a shorebird, a long-billed curlew is another shorebird, 3 related species of yagers, which are seabirds, and they're really acrobatic, beautiful seabirds. And then Arctic terns that make the longest migration in the world of any animal, and the brown pelican.
Wow, incredible. So you said that these are all birds that live near water. They're shorebirds and seabirds. Did that just happen, or is it a personal interest, part of your job? What was it?
It's really a personal interest. I grew up along the Chesapeake Bay on the eastern shore of Maryland. For you Marylanders out there in the audience, if anyone's from the eastern shore, I would love to hear about it in the chat. So I grew up around water, and I studied tropical marine ecology on coral reefs in Australia for my master's, but then moved to ocean animals for my PhD work.
Wow, that's incredible. And in our first program of this series, we heard from Kim and Sarah, 2 scientists that study species that live in water, like river herring and whales. And we heard about some of the challenges to studying those species, finding animals around water, having waterproof technology. I imagine that as you're studying seabirds and shorebirds, there must be some similar challenges. What are some of the unique challenges you face with your research?
There are similar challenges. The birds I study travel around the world during the year, and I love whales too, but birds are the record setters. They're the champions. They make the longest migrations. So we need to keep technology working during that whole entire time. And one of the best things about being a bird is that those of you that chose tropical locations or Arctic or oceans, birds live in all of those habitats. Some individuals visit all of them during the year. So it's a great thing to be a bird. Brown pelicans from the Chesapeake Bay also fly to Cuba, as you'll see. So I'm really delighted to see a person from Cuba in the audience today. But we usually can't follow birds during their entire migration across continents. We can't keep up with them with a set of binoculars or a film camera. So studying birds requires us to use really secret agent tools like tracking devices to better understand them and the places that they go that may need our help.
Well, that's incredible. And I would absolutely love to use some secret agent tools to help track animals. That sounds like a ton of fun. So you're studying migratory birds. You mentioned that they go to some of the places where we have people tuning in from, like Cuba, and I know California as well. And you mentioned the Arctic tern having the longest migration. So can you tell us a little bit more about these migratory birds? They're connecting us as they travel, right?
They are. I really think of them as kind of pen pals that travel from one country to another, one backyard to another, that we share throughout their migration. So we're sending our pen pals back and forth every year from north to south and then back south to north. And a lot of the birds that I study are from Alaska or California or Maryland, but then they visit maybe 30 different countries during their migration. So they're really world travelers that connect all of us and make us really think how much we share, even though we may live in different states or countries.
That's incredible. And why are they migrating?
It's a good question and something to think about when you get hungry and you open that refrigerator or you ask mom and dad what's for lunch and you don't have anything. You have to go to the store to get some food, and birds do the same thing, although it's on a bigger scale. So they may find just the right habitat for them to nest and raise their chicks, to make sure they don't get gobbled up by a predator. But that may not be the same place as it's good to spend the rest of the year. Birds like this black-bellied plover that find the perfect habitat to raise a chick and make a nest in the Arctic of Alaska. But then the ice comes, the ocean freezes, it gets cold. And so they leave on a migration to find better habitat for food for the rest of the year.
Incredible. So are all of these different colors on the map different birds and their travel routes?
Yes, that's right. These are all tracks, we call them, that were recorded by a tracking tag attached to the bird. And every different color is a different individual. And you see this one bird that flew all the way to Peru. That was a female, that was a girl, black-bellied plover. And we recorded her migration for 2 years in a row, all the way to Peru.
Wow, that's incredible. And a note about the female black-bellied plover, is that what we're looking at here? Because that bird does not have a black belly.
This is another place where secret agent tools come into play. Birds molt their feathers at different times during the year. So they put on a special outfit just for their nesting season. So they look really, beautiful or handsome. And during the rest of the year, they don't need that nice James Bond tuxedo like you see here. This is a male on the breeding ground. So the bird in the previous slide had actually molted into what we call non-breeding plumage or non-breeding feathers, where when you'll see them on the beaches of Texas or the beaches of California or even Maryland, a lot of times they look like this. So you can't tell the difference between a male or a female outside of the nesting season.
Oh, great. And so you've already started to talk about some of these tags that are helping you with this data so that we can see these maps and all these routes. Can you tell us a little bit about those secret agent tools? What is a tracking device? What does it do?
Sure. Would you like to see one now?
Yes.
I have a few with me. So one of the smallest secret agent tools that I use is only this big, if you can see it, and it's about the same size as a Jelly Belly. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for my Easter jelly beans that helped me in my job today. But this is a tiny little tag that we typically attach to a band around the leg of a bird. So this one's really small, but let's contrast that to a tag that we might use for a really large bird like a pelican. This is a satellite tag that has a solar panel on top, and then it's sloped in the front so that when the pelican dives, the water just goes right off and it reduces the drag on the bird. So this is for a really big bird, a bird that looks like a dinosaur.
That's incredible. And I'd love for everyone to help us engineer a tracking device. So we do have another poll. We want to know what you would consider if you were designing a good tracking device for a bird. So let's see here. So would you think about it being lightweight? Is that important for a bird? Should it be able to get wet? Should it be able to be near salt, able to submerge or go underwater, or able to be in extreme temperatures? What do you think? Give everyone a minute to take a look. And I love that we already saw some examples with the shape of the tracking device. And we're calling them tracking devices. Is it okay to call them both that or a tag?
We often use tag for shorthand, but it's not always clear to everyone what that is. But in the field, we say, do you have the tag? Is the tag on the bird? So that's definitely the shorthand.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to end this poll in just a second. Okay, let's see. So it looks like if people were thinking about birds and engineering a device, they would mostly think about it being lightweight, able to get wet, and able to submerge or go underwater. What do you think about all of these features? What's important for the birds you work with?
They are all important. We always try to use a lightweight tag as we can to still do a study that we're interested in. But all of those features for a seabird are really important. Getting wet, being near salt, because salt can corrode metals. And for some birds that dive, the ability to go underwater, you want that tag to not stop working like your cell phone if you drop it in the pool.
Incredible. And I know that we're going to see one of the birds that you work with in just a little while. So we're getting ready to maybe see who that might be. But looking at these devices again, and you were showing some of the size difference, it looks like there's no one size fits all for a bird.
No, it's completely custom for each species. And we even actually make some of the attachment devices ourselves as a scientist. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, there's no one size fits all, just like there's no one size of bird.
So can you tell us about a couple different tracking devices or tags? Can you tell us maybe a couple examples of some of those size differences?
Sure, and I'll explain a little bit of difference of how they work too. This tiny little tag, we call it a light level geolocator, and there's a really nice picture of one that is attached to a yellow band on the leg of an Arctic tern. That's a tag that I attached to this Arctic tern in Alaska. They're really tiny. They're not very expensive as far as scientific equipment goes, so they're about $150 or $200 a piece. And they enable us to study small bird species like Arctic terns. But because they don't communicate with a satellite, they just record light, and we have to use fancy nautical equations to convert light level to where the bird is on the planet. Those positions aren't always very accurate. So in a map like this, we try to show that with these yellow and red blobs around our predicted pathway for the bird. So a lot of math goes into taking the data off of this little tag and getting a map like this to estimate where the bird was.
Wow, so that's a lot of work to gather that data. And what about some of the satellite tags that we were looking at? What would those be used for?
So a satellite tag like this is what's shown. This is about the weight of a US nickel. So a nickel shown in the picture here. And this tag recharges by the sun. This little solar panel on top keeps it charged. So we're able to track birds across multiple years to see if they change their minds across multiple years. And this enables us also to study larger sized birds than the tiny little light level geolocator does. The really fun thing about satellite tags is that they're giving us data every day. So we don't have to wait to recover a tag, recatch the bird. We get updates on our phone that says your bird is now in Cuba. So satellite tags are really fun to work with as a scientist. Every day is a new discovery.
Wow, that's incredible. So we heard about two different kinds of tags. You have these light level geolocators that are really small, like a jelly belly, and you're attaching those to some different types of birds, like this Arctic tern, and that's giving you some type of data. and then a completely different device called a satellite tag that has so much involved in it that it's even kind of pinging or sending you information in real time so that you can see where these animals are.
That was a perfect summary, Erica. Can you write my papers, please?
I'd love to work with you. It's great. Well, we do have a guest who's waiting, so I would like to welcome them soon too. But before we do, I want everyone to guess who you've got with you. Here we go. So who am I? We have a couple different clues for you. So first one is that Autumn-Lynn does track this species. So next we have that they are big enough to wear a satellite tag. So they're not teeny tiny birds. And the next one, living close to the ocean. Some people are already getting it. The flock of this bird is called a squadron, which I think is really cool. And last clue, I have a large throat pouch. I think that's giving it away, but I'm going to turn it over to you, Kaylee. Can you show us who you have with you?
Huey, Pappy, come on, birds. Oh,
Huey and
here's
Pappy.
somebody coming to say hi. Huey, Pappy, come on, birds. Up here. Huey, Pappy. Oh, they're coming.
I wish I could catch birds that way.
Hi, birds. There they go. Hi, Huey.
You don't just call them over, Huey and
on.
Pappy?
Oh, here they come. There they are. These are our 2 male brown pelicans.
Haley's making it look so easy.
Come on, guys. You're
Thank
doing it. So I've got some fish here for them. So they're eyeballing me, but the sea lions, I think, are making them a little bit nervous. Come on, guys. Come on up. Oh,
They're thinking
they
about
end
it
up
for
working
sure.
their way. Yeah.
As
Hi,
we're
guys.
waiting for them, can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that bill? Because you're about to feed them, and we're going to see if they come over what their bill might look like. Here they come.
Ideally, they'd come a little closer than that, but yeah. So their bill is actually really unique. I don't know if you can tell from there, but they do have a pouch underneath their bill, and it's really a useful tool for them because they're able to catch multiple fish at one time. So unlike, your typical bird that would dive down and pick one fish out, bring it back up, these guys will actually go down and scoop up a bunch of water and a bunch of fish because they generally seek schools of fish. So there's usually a plentiful fish in that area. And then what they'll do is they'll tilt their head back and drain out the water and then eat the fish. So yeah.
Wow,
The
incredible.
pouch is also really unique in such that it also is used for thermoregulation. So their pouch actually helps cool them off when it's really hot out. And also it acts as a feeding trough for their young animals, for the young pelicans. So they'll have the fish in their mouth and they'll go over to their young and just open their mouth and let the young pelicans just pick right out.
Wow. And for living near the ocean, what other kind of adaptations do they have besides that pouch?
Yeah, so I wish they would come up, but unfortunately they're just a little worried. But which is okay. They have the choice to go away if they want. This is a very safe environment for them. But their feet, I would love to be able to show you. Their feet are actually very large and webbed. And that's great for, it's a little awkward on land when you watch them walk, which unfortunately, I don't know if you'll be able to see that today, but when they walk on land, they are a little bit awkward, but those feet, you can tell right now how great they are at swimming. So it's just like big paddles. Another really unique adaptation for these guys is that, so they dive from about 60 feet up high straight down into the water. And for most birds their size, that would actually kill them from the impact alone, because it would just be such a forceful hit into the water. But these guys are designed with air sacs underneath their skin that help to cushion that blow when they hit the water. So they are not injured at all when they hit the water because of those air sacs. Come on, guys. Come on, get some foods.
Wow, that's incredible.
Huey is on the left and Pappy is the one further away in the back.
Huey and Pappy, I love their names.
So they're actually named after war heroes. I don't quite know a whole lot about that part, but I do know that they were named after war heroes.
Wow. And we were just hearing from Autumn-Lynn when researching them that she attaches these satellite tags to them, and you're describing this diving. That's got to be something that has to sit on really tight to make sure that it's not going anywhere.
For sure.
Is there a way that you tell them apart besides their names and maybe how they look as well?
Yeah, so basically in terms of how they look between these two individuals, it changes throughout the season. But right now, Pappy has a very yellow head, whereas Huey has a whiter head right now. And also Huey, so they both have wing injuries. And that's why they are here, which maybe I'll go into a little bit later. But Huey, because of his wing injury, it sort of cocks a little bit more to the side when you see him flap his wings.
Wow. Yeah, we'd love to hear more about them.
Oh yeah, that's a great picture. Yes, it's a really great picture. So on the right there is Pappy, and you can tell with the yellow, the top of his head is a little bit yellower. And Huey is on the other side, yep, with the white head.
And everyone watching should know that this was them getting ready for today's program. So they were really ready, but they're having a little bit of stage fright today.
And you can see their feet in that picture really well.
That's great. And what's around their ankles too?
Oh, so those are bands that help to identify them. Unfortunately, they did have colored bands. One was blue and one was yellow, but just through them flopping about, they kicked them off. And we can tell them apart, so we don't necessarily need them. But that was a very helpful way for our guests to be able to know the difference.
Right. Oh, wow. So I know the zoo's pelicans are ambassadors for their species. So they're there to teach people about their species and what, we can do to help save them as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about, you said they had some stories of their own to share about their background?
So they actually, we aren't quite sure their age because they were brought to a rehab as adults, and they were actually brought to a rehab in Florida. And because they were deemed non-releasable because of their wings, they came to the zoo so they can help to educate the public about them and the threats that they face in the wild.
Wow. And we're celebrating Earth Day all week, but we know that animals like pelicans can always use our help. What's something our visitors can do to help them out?
Yeah, so you can actually see the visitors. They really love to interact at the window with our visitors. I don't know if you can tell that. So next time you come to the zoo, definitely hang out by that window because you'll get a really nice up close view of them. But sorry about that. So in terms of threats that they face in the wild, they definitely. So that was the question that you asked me, correct?
Yes.
It's about the threats.
Yeah.
So these guys, oil spills is definitely a big one. They tend to hang around where there's shipping yards or fishing boats. And so those tend to obviously have a lot of fish near them. But unfortunately, that means that there's also oil. So oil spills it's a big one for these guys. DEET, which is a pesticide, or not DEET, sorry, DDT, which is a pesticide, actually almost wipes these guys out. But US did put a ban on DDT pesticides. So luckily that is no longer as much of a factor, although pesticides do still pose a threat to birds and marine mammals. So just making sure that you check any sort of pesticide that you or your parents might use in their yards to make sure that it's organic and natural can definitely help these guys out. And garbage in the water is a big one. There's a lot of garbage in the water. Even if there's garbage on land, it can still go in the waterways and end up in the water. So for these guys, ingesting garbage is a big issue, and they could die from that. And fishing line is another big one, not necessarily from ingestion, but that could also harm them, but more so for entanglement. So they do get entangled in fishing line and can drown.
Right. So I know things like balloon strings and fishing lines, we really have to be careful for with birds, and, avoiding those or, disposing of them properly can really help to save these species.
Yeah. One really interesting thing that you can do for in terms of recycling, obviously you want to make sure to reuse, reduce, recycle any sort of garbage. Like I said, if it's on land, it can still end up in the waterways. Just do your part to really throw out and put trash in the proper receptacle. But when it comes to fishing line, you can actually, so they don't They do make some recyclable versions, but a lot of fishing line is not recyclable. So one thing you can do to help with that is to cut the pieces of fishing line into 6-inch pieces and throw it out that way. So if it does end up in the waterways, hopefully they won't get entangled in it if it's only 6 inches.
Great. So I know people are really curious about the other visitors that were near you as well. Do you have sea lions and pelicans living together in the same habitat? Do they get along?
We do. Yeah, we are a multi-species exhibit, which is really cool. We do have 5 sea lions, 4 females and 1 male, and our 2 male pelicans right there. And yeah, they really seem to just coexist really nicely. They don't really bother each other a whole lot. If anything, the sea lions are a little bit intimidated by the pelicans for whatever reason. So when we do feed the pelicans, sometimes the sea lions will hang out, but they're pretty good about not stealing the pelicans' fish, because the pelicans too, which I did not mention, but I will mention now, is that they have a really sharp hooked beak. So the sea lions definitely want to stay away from that.
Are you able to show us what the food was that you were going to be feeding them?
Yeah, of course. So let's see here. So these are the cups that they come in. So this is Huey's cup. And then over here is Mr. Pappy's cup. There it is. And inside we have, this is a piece of mackerel. This is actually a really large fish. It's just a small piece of it currently. And here we have the head of a herring. So this again is just a small piece. And then capelin, well, this is the tail of a capelin. It's much smaller, but the majority of the fish that they get is this capelin. And here's the head of a capelin. And we fill it up to about halfway. The cup's about half full, and they get this twice a day.
Oh, they're missing out on a great snack, but I'm sure they'll come out right after we're done here.
Oh, of course, right? The public really seem to be, they're waving at them and enjoying their company for sure.
Oh, fun.
Can you guys see them a little bit from over there, at least?
Yeah.
Huey,
No.
Happy, come on, birds. Come on. Oh, they might be coming. Come on, birds. They're also starting up a little bit of construction in the back, it sounds like. Let's see if I can get them closer. Oh, now they're coming. Hi, birds. Hi, Hugh. Hi, Paps. It's okay. You can just hang out here and I'll feed you, huh? There we go. I know. Come on. Can you see how Huey's wing is definitely a little bit more, doesn't stand out as straight as Pappy's?
Yes, and I think everyone was noticing just how big they are too.
Oh yeah, they're huge. So their wingspan is actually 6 feet wide, which is wider than I am tall. So that's pretty wide wingspan. And they stand at about anywhere from 3 to 5 feet. I'd say these guys are a little bit on the shorter side. I'd say they're closer to 3 feet than 5. So yeah.
Wow. Well, before we say goodbye to you, Kaylee, I did want to ask about your role as a keeper as well. How did you become interested in being a keeper?
Here, I'll turn it on me. So I've always loved animals my entire life. I always loved animals. So you go through the route of, oh, do I want to be a veterinarian? And I shadowed a veterinarian, and I realized I wanted to be on the awake side of things. So veterinarians, they do amazing, incredible work, but they do a lot of surgeries and, handle animals when they're sick and not feeling well. But I really enjoyed working with animals that were healthy and happy. And so being a zookeeper, I found is perfect for that. And I get to really know them super well, that I'm the one who usually goes to the veterinarians, because I can tell just by their behavior that something's off, which I really love about my job. And yeah, I'd say that's how I ended up becoming a zookeeper. I did a internship after I graduated college. In college, I did do an animal science bachelor's degree, and then I did an internship and just a lot of experience. You just have to get a lot of your hands-on volunteering, interning, and then yeah, landed my first job at a sanctuary, and then I got hired here.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your interest and the pelicans as much as we could see, and your path as well. We appreciate you joining us.
Of course. Have a great day.
Have a great day, Kaylee.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh,
Thank you,
Autumn-Lynn,
Kaylee.
those are huge birds. You work with some massive, massive birds.
Yeah, I like the big birds. I've worked on seals and sea lions too, so it was kind of a natural fit to start working on some of the larger seabird species. But yeah,
Absolutely.
they're pretty big. When I hold a pelican, it takes up half my body.
So we've seen some of the tracking devices already, and we kind of talked about engineering and what you have to think about, but I'd still love everyone to see the whole process. Can you talk us through, these are massive birds and they did not want to come close for Kaylee. How are you going about catching a bird to put one of these, tracking device backpacks on it?
Well, one of the easiest ways to catch a bird is when it's not flying, when it's actually sitting and stationary. So a lot of the birds that I study nest in the Arctic region. They might find this perfect little island, like here in the middle of an Arctic pond, and they make their nest on this little island. This is an Arctic tern nest. So we set a trap right around the nest, and the bird can't see it. You can't see it. It's already there in this video. So there's a trap, and then it will pop open and form a bubble over the bird after it's sitting on its nest. So the Arctic tern's coming back to its nest, and then wait for it. There's the trap. So I was off to the side of the camera pulling a line once the bird was settled in. The bird didn't even notice. It keeps just sitting there incubating its eggs until I start to get up to retrieve the bird, and that's when the bird starts to flap a bit.
Wow. Okay. So this is the capture, and it's just incredible to me how soft it looked.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite ways to catch a bird because it is, a lot of times the birds don't notice, and then I can just reach in and hold the bird gently. I usually hold the bird. You saw me put my hand on the net there, and that's to keep it from flapping, to make sure that it doesn't injure itself while I'm working with it. And then a nice show to the GoPro there. I'm walking in an Arctic lake, and the bottom is permafrost. So I kind of sink down until it's frozen. And then we use really technical tools like this cup from the cafeteria. This work was done at an oil camp, and this cup we use to weigh the bird. So we put the bird in a bag and then put the cup on a scale. And so that's one step. I use a lot of super glue. This is a common tool of a research ecologist. I'll use a GPS device to mark where the nest was to make sure that we always have that data. And then we take a lot of measurements of the birds. We use these calipers to measure the bill. We'll measure the head and the tail and the wing length. And then once we're done all of the measurements, we've attached a band to a bird. This is a band we use for a pelican, a large metal band that has a number on it that gets reported to the Fish and Wildlife Service and USGS. And then there's a tiny little band for an Arctic tern. So the difference in legs, I don't know if you can see, of this tiny little band versus a big pelican band. There's the pelican band. And then finally, we attach the tag to the bird. So that's what we were doing in the last picture. And once the tag is attached and we've checked its wings and pulled feathers out of the harness, the bird's sitting there like, okay, I'm ready now. Can I fly away? And then we release the bird. And here's me releasing a Jaeger in the Arctic, and it'll start flying back to its nest with the tracking device on.
Wow, that's incredible. So you use these special nets, sometimes over a nest, to catch one, and then you're gently removing them, taking different measurements right in the field, adding a tracking device, adding these like leg tags that are kind of like a little bracelet identifier, and then releasing them after as well. That must be such an incredible moment from start to finish.
It is, and you'll see me release this bird. It's a shorebird on the ground. So that's a really safe way to release a black-bellied plover. Seabirds get a little disoriented when you release them on the ground, so that's why we throw them up in the air. But again, one size doesn't fit all for these birds. So this is a ground released on its nest in June time of year in Alaska.
Wow. And these tracking devices are so cool. And I know some are giving different kinds of data and information. Can you talk to us a little bit about when you get that data, how are you using that? from technology to save species?
Yeah, these data are so important. Understanding where are the important places for birds is a first step in understanding how and where we can save them and where they might be at risk. It shows how sites are connected and who should be working together across countries or state lines to save species. And it really just provides that foundational knowledge that we need to do the rest of the work that we do. The field part's fun, but a lot of times I'm in front of a computer analyzing data or writing up the work for a scientific journal.
Right, and that research and the data on the back end is so important too. And I know that you've done a lot with your data in, kind of influencing action. Can you tell us about, what your data has done to help save birds?
Yeah, thanks, Erica. It's really an honor to work with animals in the field. And so we really want to make sure that the data we're collecting are used to help save them. And so some of my work has been presented. I got to present at the United Nations. Women always do that, right? This is a Women in Science. Some of my work has been presented. No, I presented it at the United Nations during treaty negotiations to form a new treaty for the ocean. I was invited to give an 8-minute speed talk and to try to interpret the migration paths of marine animals like albatrosses and seals for this audience of policymakers, decision makers. And this is the General Assembly room in New York, where everyone's wearing their interpretation devices over their ears, and they've got their country placards in front of them, and it was just crazy. This is why I got into this field, to be able to share science in a way that can help influence policy and decision making.
Wow, incredible. So this is just such an important work, and your work as a woman in STEM is really so inspirational. And I'd love to hear more about your journey. How did you become interested in this? You said this is what you love about your job.
Oh, that's probably my first field expedition to the Arctic, where I got to see the Arctic for the first time. This was October in Alaska. A week later, the ocean had frozen into ice, so a really big change really quickly. But I grew up in a pretty rural area where I was outdoorsy, but I also really liked fashion and crafting and all kinds of things that traditionally are viewed to associate with someone like me. But I had so many influences along the Chesapeake Bay. I knew women that crabbed for a living and women that were foresters or wildlife biologists. So it seemed like a clear path that I could take. It wasn't odd, it was maybe rare, but the door didn't seem closed to me. And so that's, I just always really liked nature, largely from where I grew up.
Oh, amazing. And I'd love to hear what everyone watching might be interested in that ties into, your career, Kaylee's career, and even zoo educators. So you're hearing from us all week long from some educators who are joining as well. So we want to hear what you're interested in with these careers already that might kind of spark your passion. Is it making observations, working with animals in the field, caring for animals, teaching others about animals, using technology, reviewing data and creating models, solving problems, and drawing and or photographing animals?
There are so many careers that you can take to work with animals and to help them. And you don't need to be a scientist to help animals either. So I think, or at least for your job, I think everyone can be a scientist. It's all about solving mysteries. I love Nancy Drew books, and that probably got me into this career too. But anyone can help.
Amazing. And it looks like our answers are stopping a little bit, so I'm going to end and share the results. So it looks like a lot of people like caring for animals. Maybe you have pets already at home, or volunteer or intern, might be kind of in your future and path and something caring for animals, but a lot with solving problems, teaching about animals, and working in the field as well. So a little bit of everything. And I think finding the combination of these things that we enjoy are such a fun part of kind of the career journey and learning about it. And in the field and doing field work. I know we're looking at some photos of you working with other women in the field. You must have some interesting moments in the field as well. Do you have any funny stories working with some of these animals?
Well, yes, too many to count. You've seen how unpredictable the animals can be. And one of the things that you have to get really good at when you're a wildlife biologist is being comfortable with things coming out of animals and onto you. So I've been projectile pooped upon by really large birds like pelicans and loons, and it's warm and kind of gross and smells like fish. And, some of the things you have to get used to when you're working outside is mosquitoes in the summer in Alaska. These are mosquitoes on this film. And
they look like birds. They're that big.
Yeah, they look like birds. And sometimes you have to wait for an hour to catch just that right bird. And so you're just exposed during that time. And some birds like to regurgitate what they've just eaten into your hands. So gulls are really famous for that. And gulls have a diverse diet. We know they eat natural things like fish, but they also eat things like, here, I'll show you my earrings if you can see them. This is a gull with a French fry. And so when you catch a gull, they can often throw it up into your hands. And sometimes that's beautiful, like pelagic red crabs, a handful, and sometimes it's barbecue and hot dogs. So try to help gulls by not letting them get your French fries.
I've never heard somebody describe regurgitation or animal throw up as potentially being beautiful because a crab might come out. So I'm glad that you love even the gross moments. Well, we only have about 10 minutes left and we have so many questions coming in. So I do want to, move into our Q&A. And I know Kaylee is staying on to join us as well. So we do have questions for both of you. Talking about women in STEM, and Autumn-Lynn, you mentioned this already a little bit about looking up to other women. Do you have people who served as mentors or role models? And also, how do you go about finding a mentor?
Erica, you want me to?
Yeah, you can start.
One thing that was strange to me is that I had so many mentors growing up. As I mentioned, in the Chesapeake Bay, Kathy Baptist taught me about the Bay. Cindy Slacum taught me about soils. Maggie Briggs taught me about wildlife. She was a wildlife manager. But then I got to college and I had very few women professors. So it was really nice to see representation at some point in my life and know that I could do this job. But still sometimes I feel that women are underrepresented in some parts of the field, and I'll get asked to serve on a panel and I might be the only woman.
So we can still use lots of women in science and in these roles. Kaylee, do you have mentors as well?
Yeah, so during my internship, I would say that was mostly where I sort of got a lot of guidance and discovered that, yes, this is what I want to do for a field. I would say Ken Ramirez, he is a world-renowned animal behaviorist. And I was so fortunate that at the Shedd Aquarium where I did my internship, he was in charge of the program back then. And I learned a lot, and seeing a lot of the incredible women training and doing some really great things was what sort of just opened my eyes, and they were always willing to answer any questions that I had. And yeah.
I love that. And I love that you're bringing up someone who's not a woman, because it's so possible to have mentors in anyone as long as they're encouraging for you and an advocate for you in the career that you're choosing and your future. So there really can be, a mentor of any kind who's just helping you get a foot in the door. All right, let's see. We've got so many questions coming in. Let's see. Autumn-Lynn, for you, do you travel a lot to catch the birds that you study? And if so, where do you go?
I do travel a lot. Some of my work has been on seals and sea lions in California and South Africa. I did my master's degree in Australia. But growing up, I barely traveled. I hadn't been out of the United States. I hadn't been off North America until I was in my 20s. So this was a new experience for me. And one of the best parts of the job is working with teams and people from all over the world who share the love that you do for this animal that you're working with.
Wow, incredible. All right, we've got another question. Can you share what your favorite birds to look for in the DC area are? Somebody is new to the area and wants to look for birds. Autumn-Lynn, do you want to help us with that one?
Sure, I'd love to hear Kaylee's answer too. That'll be good. One of the birds that I love seeing and that you can see at the National Zoo at certain times of year is a black-crowned night heron. I love that night herons are at the zoo because they were the first bird to ever be banded with one of these metal bands by a Smithsonian scientist 100 years ago, and now we're tracking them with these devices. So they can be kind of secretive. They like hanging out by the water, but they also hang out and roost at the zoo. So black-crowned night heron in the DC area would be one to check off for sure.
Love it. And Kaylee, I don't know if you're a birder, people saw you at the Pelicans today, but do you want to talk about if you have a favorite bird in the DC area, that's great. But also, what does American Trail look like for you? What other kinds of animals do you work with?
Yeah, so it's sort of 2 in 1 there because I love ravens. And we actually have ravens here on American Trail. So I do get to work with them a lot. I just think they're just so smart and they're so savvy with everything they do. They're actually so smart that they actually use tools, which is unique to corvids, which is what crows and ravens, the category that they are both under. So similar to apes and elephants and dolphins that use tools, and obviously humans, ravens do as well. And in terms of other animals here on American Trail that I work with, so I actually am newer on American Trail. I had worked with elephants for 10 years, 7 of which was here at the Smithsonian's National Zoo with the elephants here. And I decided that, I'd worked with these animals for so long that it would be good for me to learn more about birds because I had never worked with birds before. And marine mammals, I love to train. And we train all of our animals here, but there's a lot of training that goes into marine mammals. So here we have seals, sea lions, ravens, pelicans, eagles. We do have an eagle, Annie, she's pretty incredible. Keto, our maned wolf that we have, beavers, otters as well. Always feel like I'm missing something. The wood ducks, we have wood ducks and ruddy ducks. Don't forget them out. I love the ruddy ducks too. They're also a lot of fun. They're super cute.
Amazing. So we have 5 minutes left. So I'm going to launch our final poll just in case people have to leave. But we do still have a couple questions. So if everyone wants to stay and hear some more answers, we would love to have you. And another one for you, Autumn-Lynn, is it hard to be a scientist? Madeline asked that.
It definitely taxes the brain and sometimes it's physically hard. We've talked about the crazy moves we have to make in the field, crawl on our bellies or jump up and run. So it can be a workout. And it is hard. And, it's also hard emotionally when you spend so much time studying a bird that you really care about and you see places start to be removed from their habitat or you see a pelican entangled. So there are a lot of highs, but then some things that can be hard about being a scientist too, when you spend so much time caring for these animals.
Well, it's great to hear that they're, the emotional difficulty for it because you care so much too. So even though it might be hard work, it's really, has some really rewarding moments. And, like you said, right from the beginning, you love it right away. So if you find something that you love, you can apply the science that you're learning in school absolutely to this and continue to enjoy it. So a couple questions about more of the tracking devices. What do the small tags run on? Because they were so teeny tiny, like the Jelly Belly.
That is a great question. Yes, there is a tiny little battery in this tag. And this battery only has capacity for about 1.5 years of data. So it runs for about 1.5 years. We have to recover the bird in its 2nd year after it's gone back to its nest again in the Arctic, in the middle of Alaska, in the tundra. So we have to recache the bird get the tag, and then download the data from the tag. So it runs on a tiny little battery, and then we pull the data off of. And yes, that pure recovery joy, that's when you find this bird who has just traveled to Antarctica and back to the Arctic in a year, and it's within a few meters of where it nested the year before, and you're able to catch it a second time and get that tag off of that leg.
Oh, amazing. Well, I know we only have a couple minutes left. So Alex and Andrew asked, what's your favorite moment in the field? And that's for you, Autumn-Lynn. And then after she answers, Kaylee, if you can say what your favorite moment so far on your time at American Trail.
I think two things. So you saw that pure recovery joy, definitely a favorite moment. You know that you haven't tagged this bird in vain. You've got the tag back, and it just made the longest migration in the world, or one of. But I also really enjoy the moments of working with people and camaraderie and kicking back at the end of the day, sharing what we've seen that day, and just being out in nature. That's the best, being away from the desk.
Amazing. Kaylee, what do you like about American Trail so far? What's been a fun moment?
So far, a fun moment that I really enjoy, which like really brings joy to my job, is the moments where we train animals for something that would normally be a stressful procedure, such as blood draw or an injection training. Like for me, I know I don't like getting needles in my body, and neither do the animals. But so it could be something that's stressful, but we work and train them every day, all day, so that these events that we regularly have to do on them are not stressful at all, because we train them a lot. So I'd say that's what probably brings me the most joy is seeing those moments where a veterinarian comes down and says, hey, we need blood on Kia, can we get it? I'm like, yep, no problem. And she comes right up, and at any point she can go right into the water. But our vets can come draw blood, and it's not a stressful situation at all. They get a bunch of food, and then they go off on their way. Nobody has to be restrained. Nobody has to be sedated. And I'd say that brings me a lot of joy.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. Autumn-Lynn, since you kicked us off, and I want to end with you, if you have any words of wisdom for people who are looking to get started, do you have any, kind of parting advice for those interested in this field?
For me growing up, it was really just voicing that I was interested in something to a person that did that job, and asking, can I help you? I think that is the first step. And people email me all the time, and sometimes you have opportunities and sometimes you don't, but I always remember the person that emailed me and, or asked me and had this passion. So I think that's the first step, just letting people know that you're interested in this topic, and if you might be able to help.
That's great. Thank you so much for that advice. And I hope everyone who is interested does just that and reaches out and tells, their teacher or a mentor in their life that they're interested in, and hope that they find someone to encourage them to get to, be in this field and do what they love, just like you said right from the start that you love what you do. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We got to learn how and why Autumn-Lynn tracks migratory birds, and a couple of the different kinds of tracking devices that she uses, how the data has helped to save species and the incredible difference that she's making. And then that there are so many other careers in working with wildlife as well, like you saw with Kaylee. We hope that you'll join us again on Friday for Earth Day, April 22nd at 1 p.m., where we'll close out the Women on the Move series with our land species. And we encourage you to post about this program if you liked it. Respond to us, tell us if you liked it in the survey as well. So educators, we'd appreciate your feedback so we can always improve and help make this program better. And a huge thank you again to the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative and Earth Optimism. On behalf of the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute and the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, keep on moving and have a wild day. Thanks, everyone.